Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast. And today we have Ashlee Chapman here, and she's going to talk about how she's gotten into investments and wholesaling and has transplanted her career to San Diego, having originally been born in Washington. We're so excited to have Ashlee here. Just a little bit of her background. So she is the Director of Acquisitions for the Middleton Group, which is brokered by Big Block Realty. And her team specializes in investment properties, fixing up properties. And so that is really a key niche for them. And Ashlee's just been killing it in her role and very excited to share all the wisdom that she's gained along the way. So welcome, Ashlee. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm super jazzed. I love acquisitions and real estate. So
cool. Well, for those folks that don't know you, which is probably most people, why don't you just give us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in San Diego doing real estate?
oh my gosh, yes. I'm from Washington State. I'm from a small town in Elma, Washington. I actually before I moved to San Diego, I've worked so many sales jobs. So I worked sales at Sunglass Hut. I worked sales at a tanning salon. I worked sales selling designer jeans. I've done like all the sales things, and everything up until that point. I hit car sales was like the final like sales job, right? So I moved to Seattle, got into car sales, started selling Hondas and Toyotas. Had a blast. I had so much fun. It was super challenging considering the fact that I worked with a bunch of people who had been doing it for 20 years. So, I was like new. I was 20 years old and had like absolutely, I thought I knew sales, right? You're like 20, you're like, yeah, I know everything. Well, I didn't know crap. So I started selling cars and doing pretty well. I, would take cars in on trade, just like mass marketing, right? But it was super expensive. I was like, gosh, there has to be an easier way. But fast forward, I really only worked in car sales for about a year. I did well. The sales manager that I had there was like, you're never like, I was like, I literally quit my job one day, moved to San Diego. Like I'd never been down to San Diego before. I just quit and moved. So I literally came in, I was sitting in my office and I was like, yeah, I'm out. Peace. I signed a lease yesterday. Like I'm taking the summer off. And they literally looked at me in the face and they were like, yeah, you're never gonna sell real estate down there. And don't try to sell cars. You'll get eaten alive. And I was like, I do well here. You guys want to keep me here. That's why you're being such brats about it. So I peaced out, moved to San Diego, started my cold calling journey in real estate, which luckily car sales translated really well because you're just calling people who put in information online all the time. So cold calling, it was a little bit different in the fact that it was a true cold call. They didn't inquire about anything. So I just hit the phones with my prior brokerage, and my prior broker wasn't licensed. So I was an inside sales agent. I was just making phone calls and setting appointments. So I was doing that 6 hours a day. 8 hours a day sometimes. And it was pretty taxing, but I didn't get my license for almost a year because I was just so like hot on the phone. And it's like a hidden gold mine that agents don't think about. They're like, oh God, cold calling, could never do that. Well, I had to do it to get paid. So, and fast forward, I still do it every once in a while. So I love it. And that's a little bit of the journey to real estate.
Well, and I love, there's a lot of people that have been very successful in real estate that got started out in inside sales because you're perfecting a spot where so many people don't want to touch. And if you can do that well, you can do anything well because you know what to say, especially if it's true cold calling. You're getting objections left and right, so you know how to handle them. You're answering a lot of questions. And so it's really the best boots on the ground training that you can get. And then now you get your real estate license and you're just adding pieces on top of that really solid foundation that you've built.
Yeah. No, honestly, cold calling is, and being an inside sales teaches you. I mean, I wasn't from San Diego. Okay. Like
Mhm.
I came here sight unseen. I didn't even know I didn't know where I was sleeping. I signed a lease like that quickly. And it just so happened I was on the beach, like, but I didn't know that before I got here. So, it was so interesting. But all of the things that a traditional person who gets into real estate does is network. You know, they know people. Like if I did real estate back in my hometown, I would dominate the market. I know everyone. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I get it. But here, I didn't know anyone. I was like, well, shoot, I didn't even know cold calling was a thing. And on top of that, I was cold calling foreclosures, which I didn't even know what that was. The only thing
Mhm.
I knew was back in 2008, I was, I think, in eighth grade or going into my senior year of high school, or
Mhm.
my freshman year of high school, excuse me. And the only thing I knew was like, dang, I see for sale signs everywhere, even in my hometown, as small as it was. And that's it. I didn't know anything, and nobody gave me a handbook. I can tell you, nobody gave me a handbook. I had to figure all of it out on my own. Foreclosures, bankruptcy, all of it. I had to do it all by myself, figure it out. It was like walking in to one of those rooms that have all those mirrors on the walls where you're just like, what the frick is going on?
Yeah.
That's how it was in 2017 when I started cold calling.
Mhm. So how did you go through the process of figuring things out?
Oh gosh, I got really obsessed with real estate early on. I got obsessed with like the first 2 weeks I was cold calling, we got a deal under contract. So I was like, holy crap, I could do this. I'm the best,
Mhm.
which I wasn't, soon to find out. But I just got so involved in everything to do with foreclosures. I started reaching out to attorneys. I started reaching out to loan modification attorneys specifically. There's only one in San Diego, California that I've ever found that still practices in loan mods, because
Mhm.
the majority of them back in the day all got in trouble, right? So um, it was a lot of trial and error. I started doing loan modifications myself. I figured out that you don't have to hold a license to do loan mods. And so when I learned that, I started telling people like, hey, it's illegal to charge up front in the state of California for loan modifications if somebody's doing that. And I figured out like the companies that were doing that. And then I was like, oh gosh, a loan mod is really simple. And obviously it's not the best case scenario, but I just started doing it. I was like, okay, so you just go online, select portfolio services. Where's their loan modification package? Well, it's typically the same as a short sale package. So, you can get all of the documents yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and I started going into the weeds, so to speak. Like I just started doing it. And if I had a question, I'd pick up the phone and call Janet Gutierrez, the attorney that I work pretty exclusively with, about bankruptcy or loan mods. And then I learned the foreclosure process. I also went to a couple trustee sales
Mhm.
at the courthouse, which back in the day, hear stories about how they used to be. And now when you go, there is a table outside of the El Cajon courthouse where they play cards and they call out property addresses, and there's a few people there and they have cashier's checks. So I did all of it. I went and just kind of immersed myself in that and also started doing it instead of, oh, well, if I mess it up, whatever. Like,
Mhm.
no, there's no like, oh, well, I don't know how to do it, so I'm not going to do it. No, I just started doing it. Like the loan modification package was step by step. Okay. They need 2 recent pay stubs, 2 recent bank statements, mortgage statement, all this stuff. And they need to fill out their financial hardship and blah, blah, blah. So it's literally so black and white. But if you don't like do any research, of course you don't know that.
And I think you showed so many people have so many questions about things, and you just figured it out. And you
Yes,
rolled up your sleeves and you dug in and you forged ahead and you got answers where you needed answers. You didn't wait for stuff to come to you.
correct. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's you, and it's with anything, any sort of real estate transaction, even probate, of course, you're not really comfortable with that situation until you really know what the probate process is, similar to foreclosure.
Hmm.
And I mean, there's so many different things, code violations. I mean, who wants to talk to the city of San Diego? Not me. They're usually really lazy over there. So
Hmm.
but if you don't figure out what it is that they need, of course you're never going to learn it.
So then how did you transition? So you were doing your ISA role. Now this was kind of moving into the next role that you had. So where did this go? How did you find your next opportunity from doing all the foreclosures, short sales, loan mods, all that stuff?
Yeah, so I got licensed in July 2018, and
Hmm.
then I had been prospecting so much at that point. It was like I got my license, and prior to that, my broker took all the listings, right? So like I had nothing to show for it. But at the same time, I still almost 4 years into my career, I would rather pass off a listing than take one. So I'll take
Hmm.
some here and there, but I came in like with 5 listings, like right out of the gate, because I had been following up with people so much. I'd been prospecting so much. It was like, okay, boom, boom, boom. And then I quit prospecting just foreclosures and I moved I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many different things that I could prospect now.
Hmm.
I started hitting up 90-day lates, code violations, liens, tax liens, like every sort of distressed situation, I was calling them. And then that's when I walked into a deal. The early 2019, I walked into a deal that was a duplex that I was like, oh my gosh, they only want this much for this house, and there's equity. What? I was so like mind blown. I was like, how do I buy this house? Like, what am I doing? I'm not listing this. It was a mess. I was like, I'm not listing this house. I'm going to buy it. And then
Hmm.
that's when I officially did my first wholesale deal.
It's so funny that it just came up out of, the opportunity presented to you.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's fantastic. You hear a lot of times when people say, before you take a listing, you should decide if you want to purchase that first, because as real estate agents, we kind of have first dibs
Yes.
with the market that's out there. And yeah, if you run across a great property, figure out a way to jump on it. So then how did you finance that? Did you finance that personally, or did you find money from other folks to help you with that?
No, I did. Yeah, I partnered on it with somebody. And the thing is like, so that's the thing. Wholesaling was like a whole new language to me too. I
Hmm.
mean, I knew short sales, negotiation of short sales and like the contracts really well, but I didn't know what a wholesale contract looked like, let alone I didn't even have an LLC. I didn't have any of like my back end business stuff ready to go.
Hmm.
I was really still new. Even though I'd been prospecting, the only thing I knew up until that point was how to set appointments. That was like, and I knew appointments equaled contracts,
Hmm.
but it's the same thing in investments. I mean, literally, I think it happens for everybody. I've had a couple of newer agents under me in the past, and I have said to them, they want to get in, or somebody who wants to get into wholesale. I'm like, look, you don't like if you focus too much on it, other than just doing the activity, if you just do the activity, it comes to everybody at a certain time. But you can't
Hmm.
just pinpoint like, oh, if it's not a purchase, I'm walking away. You know what I mean? Like you have to get creative. So I didn't use my own money.
Hmm.
I wholesaled the deal and I, you know, for lack of a better term, made more than people make in a year on the deal. And
Hmm.
I was like, holy smokes. And at that point, I was like, I need to really focus on this. So when I say I didn't use my own money, and when you do an assignment contract, you put an earnest money deposit in an escrow, and you have to have equitable interest in it. And then you assign that contract, and the investor that you assign it to, because you're essentially selling the contract, does reach out to you. But that's the thing. And the one thing I just want to make sure people know too is you really need to disclose these things. The seller needs to know I'm a licensed agent. I am held to a higher standard. absolutely. Everything is on paper. They know everything. Don't go out and try to wholesale and pull the wool over a seller's eyes or try to screw them. Be honest. Like, this is what you're doing. This is why. And they're, 9 times out of 10 gonna be fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you had your first wholesale deal, and you looked up and you said, "Holy cow, I made a lot of money off of this." Where did it lead from there?
Then it was like a snowball effect. I had somebody prospecting for me
Mm-hmm.
at the time, after that. And I was probably going on 10 to 15 appointments a week. I literally remember just, I wasn't even sleeping, I don't think. I was so stoked about life. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
holy crap, I have 4 appointments on my calendar tomorrow. So it
Mm-hmm.
was just a snowball effect. I remember going into I went on some appointments at 6:30 in the morning. These are distressed properties. People who are in dire situations. And it was just, yeah, I mean, that's the best way I could describe it. It was like, I feel like I felt then in 2019 how people felt in 2005. Like, I was like, holy smokes, I'm killing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a snowball effect. It just, I started focusing on that. And then I realized, like, if you give people options, like, I'm a licensed agent. If somebody truly doesn't want to take a cash offer, don't force them into it. Put the property
Mm-hmm.
on the market. So then I started referring those listings out because I was like, I don't want to take a listing. It was like, that's going to get me off track. I need to focus on this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, with the amount of appointments I was going on, it was really fun. I mean, I had a ball.
Well, and the funny thing is for most people, like, listings is the thing that they want. They'd
Mhm.
rather refer out anything else that isn't a listing. And here you are doing the exact opposite, where you're like, I don't want to take a listing. I want to do all the other stuff.
Yeah, no listings. I enjoy them a little bit more now because I realized after doing that, and I think something that we all realize is I probably did the wrong thing, um, by not taking the listings, because I would actually walk away from deals if it were not a cash deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately I was like thinking in my head, like, oh, I just want to be an investor. And then I was just leaving money on the table. Like, so I was really doing myself a disservice, even though I wasn't, right. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, I need to focus on this one thing. But as time went on, now I take more and more listings, but I still would rather, like, if I can give the listing to somebody else and take 50% or whatever, then I'd rather do that.
So how did you then get lined up with your current group, the Middleton Group? How did that come together?
Oh my gosh. So Middleton Group, ride or die, lifer. I love the Middleton Group. Luke Middleton, the owner of Middleton Group. Yeah, I actually was referred to him by Yasmin Kuza. She is a wholesale broker here in San Diego. So she does loans.
Mm-hmm.
And I was chatting with her and I was like, look, I was on my own, at my prior brokerage, but I was like, I just think I could do more, with a little bit more guidance. I hadn't worked really with any buyers still. I
Mm-hmm.
was so just gung ho on listings, appointments, short sales. Like, that was it. And I was like, I think I could do more. I met Luke in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, yeah, come to the team. He actually wanted me to work with buyers. And then he had, it was so funny. I was like, you know what? Every team that I interviewed with, I was like, I either sit in my house by myself all the time and prospect, or work with people who want to do bigger things. So that was my idea. And then I thought to myself, like, well, if people know that I'm wholesaling, they're going to turn me away. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
be like, what are you? And at the time, I didn't know who, like, the big investors were. So Luke was an investor. He'd done 500 flips prior. He's been with Renovation Realty. He knows construction. He has really strong background in that. And I was like, oh, this could be a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually started working with an investor in, San Diego, who's also up in Orange County. And it was just a major fail. It was a
Mm-hmm.
major fail. I think everything kind of turned opposite on us. But yeah, Luke wanted me to do open houses of the listings of the flips that investor was doing. And I was like, you could not pay me to do that. Like, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I know I haven't worked with a buyer, but I just didn't want to. I was like, this just seems like a waste of my time. Like, I actually would do open houses with our other agents and set appointments for them in those open houses so they could get deals.
Mm-hmm.
And so like my first wholesale deal, I had already been with Luke and he didn't even know about it. Like, it was just, I was like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. Nobody. And that was the thing about me as a person. I'm a partner, not, I'm not a buyer's agent. So that's when we moved from that investor to Big Block Realty, Luke was like, yeah, we just need to partner up more. So like, I look at you as like a partner. I don't have a commission split. I don't have any of that. We run our own investments separately and together. And at that point, like when Luke saw the value that I bring to the table, and he didn't turn that away as like a threat, because a lot of team leaders, like these big teams, I know them in San Diego, they think, oh, well, I'm the big dog here. Well, that's not how it is on our team. Everybody has equal opportunity to do whatever it is that they want to do and be extremely freaking good at it. And so we have agents that are really freaking good who love working with buyers. And then we have one agent in particular, Josh, who like all of his listings have been over $1 million. He's like a newer agent. He got licensed, I think, a couple of years ago, and he's been with us since the beginning. But he's really good at capturing some sort of like luxury market, where is like, I just took my first $2 million listing, and I can tell you, like, it's not probably my biggest strength working with luxury clients, but it's his. So, everybody has the opportunity to do what they want. I can flip as many houses as I want. I can wholesale as many deals as I want. And I think the cool thing about our team and what keeps people around and the morale so high is that, like, it's our names on those listings, and, Luke isn't taking a cut of it, because ultimately it's a growth period. We'll take cuts of certain things. Like if I'm giving out leads or Luke is giving out leads, like, yeah, I want to cut. Like if I get a referral and I don't have time for it, of course, that's a separate situation. But, everybody is out building their own businesses with the Middleton Group, and they're just able to do what they want. So that was the big turning point for me, was like, holy smokes, this is a lifelong partnership for me.
So great to see, because a lot of times, and really that's why I like doing this podcast, is finding people operating within their strength zones, doing what they love and what they're good at, and finding that combination. And for some people, it's the traditional agent. For some people, it's not. It's also why on the podcast, I've had people that have VA companies, admin companies, tax liens, you name it. It's helping people to find that sweet spot of the mixture of doing what I love and finding a spot where that fits. Because that's going to be what carries you through life, versus just being an agent where after 2-3 years, you get burned out if you're kind of a square peg in a round hole and you haven't found that fit in the right environment and using the best part of your skill set. You're going to want to go somewhere else. And so seeing somebody that values what you value and values your interests and your abilities is phenomenal. So that's great.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I think that real estate teams got really big recently. Everybody is on a team, but I think the thing about it is they all have like the one agent, right? The one listing agent. Even some of the investors I work with, they have the one listing agent. Okay, well, that person lists all of the flips, or they do all of this. I encourage people to allow your team members to become real producers and help them and guide them in that direction, because if you don't, they will leave you when they find the tricks in the hat that you so badly want to hang on to, that there is no reason for that. There is so much money for everybody to go around and so much success and opportunity. Allow them to build it, because what will happen is they will come back and thank you later for that opportunity and will continue to do business with you. And likely you will always be their first phone call when they want to do a deal with you. And I think that is way more powerful than building a following. I think it makes more sense to build leadership.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's talk about a few of the deals that you've done. Maybe some good stories to share on some of the flips. You had just mentioned you had a really big wholesale deal that came together. So share some of the examples, and maybe too, we know that there's a lot of agents out there that don't really know the next steps. And we talked about this beforehand, like, what if I don't have the money to get started? How do I find the money to get started? And so let's walk through some of those objections that a normal agent might have, and how you were to overcome them to build your investor business and to continue and to do more wholesaling.
Yeah, I think the first thing as an agent that you can do to build like your investor business, I think that portion of real estate is so important, because um you need to get out there and assert yourself. There's every town or big city has investors, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you look at San Diego, I mean, there's so many big investors. There's GG Homes, Sterling Investments, Acropolis, all these big guys who also run these big teams, and they're number one in production every single year. And it just so happens that we compete with them at Big Block Realty, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, I encourage you to reach out to those people in your marketplace and ask for the business. There's also investors out there who aren't licensed. I recently just went to Sterling Investments and I said, look, they had a listing agent who's listing all of their flips, but they didn't have that. Was that agent bringing them deals? I don't know. I didn't even know who the agent was. That's how much I don't pay attention. But they had flipped 30 they're flipping 30 condos right now. And I didn't know. I just had called and I was like, look, I want to be your listing agent. Nick and I get along. Why am I not your freaking listing agent? And then that translated into a couple meetings where the conversation was, we'll give one listing to Ashlee and give another to somebody else. And in that moment, I just said, look, I don't compete for business. You either give me all 30 or I don't want them. And if you don't come with that sort of confidence and that, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the effing best, I don't care, I'll do whatever it takes, nobody's going to take you seriously, because I can tell you that we're all cut from the same cloth, so to speak. We all do the same things in real estate. We all put a listing on the market, whether we market it or not. We're getting phone calls and we're negotiating deals. But I can tell you that if you assert yourself in the marketplace as the number one person, even if you aren't, people will
Mm-hmm.
take you seriously. So first of all, put yourself out there, make statements that are bold, because people love it. Like, everyone knows me for me. They know Ashlee doesn't take any BS from anyone, and I'm going to get what I want because that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I just encourage you to get uncomfortable and go talk to them. Go get the investor business. And if you don't ask for it, you'll never receive it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the other thing is start like making cold calls. Like, you want to do some investment deals, get on the phones. And if you don't know how to do that, get in touch with your title rep. Your title rep is your biggest piece to the puzzle. I'm telling you, like,
Mm-hmm.
my title rep, Noah, he gets me all of the stuff that I want. And I love him. He will get me resources, whatever. So sit down with them and just start doing it. And to find money is just networking. I don't ever, like I said, we don't usually ever use our own money. We use hard money loans. But like, if you don't have the 20% to put down on the hard money loan, go ahead and start networking. Find somebody who does, somebody who's going to partner with you on that deal. I have an investor that we flipped a house last year. He actually brought all of the money and I managed the entire project, and we made 100 plus grand on the flip. And he was super happy. And he's literally so loyal to me now. Even, and I didn't even have any skin in the game. I had no money, but that's how good the deal was. So do things like that. A couple of the deals that I've done recently, we're doing one, that's an $85,000 wholesale fee, acquisition fee. I just did another one that was 206,000. One earlier this year, it was 100. Another one I got to one of our investors and is being flipped in-house right now. And all of those deals came from the phone and cold
Mm-hmm.
called.
Mm-hmm.
Every single aspect of that was the book Never Split the Difference. If you have not read it by Chris Voss, you should. That
Mm-hmm.
will change your sales game, and that's what got me in contract with those deals.
Mm-hmm.
The one property that I got to Luke's investor that he's flipping with his investor right now, the seller was so stoked. That property had been on the market last year, fell off. The seller was so skeptical, absolutely told me on the phone that he hated me. He was like, I don't want to talk to you. Everybody's calling me. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I actually have a real offer. How many people are calling you? He's like, tons of people. And I was like, well, what are they saying? Like, I just kind of got in his head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us a little bit to close escrow on that deal because it was like New Year's, or it was Christmas, New Year's. I was in Mexico, and then, it needs $130,000 of foundation work. So there was a lot of moving pieces and inspections that we had to do. But at the end of it, he actually kind of was mad at me during the transaction. I mean, we were direct to seller, so there's no agency involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of it, he was like, if you guys don't close on this thing, I'm going to freak out and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, we are closing. I can guarantee you it's just going to take 2 more days. Finally, we closed. I didn't hear anything from him. I called, texted, emailed, and then he finally called me back, and he's actually going to fly out here this summer when we're done with that deal to see it, because he's owned this house he had owned it since 89.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been vacant for 12 years, and he thought he was going to move back. But we did that deal. He doesn't even live in San Diego. He lives in Arizona. We did that deal all over the phone, through email. And he's like super stoked. I've sent him some photos of the demo process, and, even though I kind of, I'm not really flipping it, I got it to one of our investors, and I made my money, and they're going to make their money.
Mm-hmm.
He's super excited. So those are the reasons why I do what I do, is like seeing it from beginning to end, and like going through like people are going to hate you. I've had sellers hate me,
Mm-hmm.
but by the end of it, they're like, oh, it's over. I'm done. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of success, but there's also a lot of things behind the scenes that I did for years, 2 to 3 years, to get that good on the phone, and to also be honest, open, and ethical with people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one thing that will get you deals.
Simple and not easy. And for you, you've put in the work doing the hard things. So, if you want to have those wholesale contracts where you're making $200,000, well, guess what? You've also been pounding the phones for hours and hours and hours and hours, for months and months, to be able to get to that point. So,
Exactly.
we see what's above the surface, but, below the iceberg there's all that hard work, all that difficult time that you've spent on the phone, all the people that have been mad at you and you've never talked to again, to get the people that are mad at you when you're doing the sale of their home, and eventually they love you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is like what people don't see is like the evolution of it, and like the calls, and the self-development, because, I wasn't always really good on the phones. I hit a really big plateau when I was an ISA of like, wow, I was setting all these appointments. Now all of a sudden I can't set any appointments. Well, it was because when I first started, I didn't know what I didn't know. And then I started to learn about the process and foreclosures and loan mods. And I started to forget, like, okay, if these people are not going to lose their house, I need to set an appointment. So then once I kind of got out of my own head, I just, it just snowballed. And, I hate when people say, oh, I just don't know anything, or I would never do that, or, I can't do that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I can barely stand doing a traditional transaction, but I still do them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of my clients and how awesome they are. I have amazing clients. My traditional clients are phenomenal. Some of them are really, really close friends. And it's because of the difficult things in the distressed real estate market that make the traditional transactions look like gold. Like, I'm like, holy smokes, this is easy. When I have a client who gets, I had a client who got upset about light bulbs. The seller wouldn't put in new light bulbs. And I was like, you know what? I get it. You want to cancel over light bulbs. I just want to tell you right now that there are bigger issues in the world, and light bulbs are like $10. And then at that point it was squashed and we moved on. But, there's multiple facets to real estate. Capitalize on the one thing that you love, but also still keep your avenues of, or your streams of income open to make money.
Mm-hmm. So what does the future hold for you? Where do you see, these last couple of years of the great success that you've had? Where do you see this building?
Yeah, I'm coming up on my 3rd year being licensed and my 4th year in the business. And I'm really focusing on building capital right now, because we all know that the market is extremely hot, but we also all know that it probably can't last forever. So, COVID propped up the real estate market, and I've done a ton of research and I have not experienced a downturn. But what I do know is, if you have done the work, and I'm putting money away to save, to then purchase property, and I'm looking at other areas, not San Diego, when the market turns, that is, I'm going to stuff cash in places like where the returns are going to be massive 5 to 10 years after that. So that is true wealth building and also true retirement. And there's no other investment that you can make better than that. So that's where I'm headed. I laugh with Luke. I tell him, like, I want to retire by 30. I have an investment property now, but I'm like, I wanted to retire at 30. So I'm like doing all this crap now. Like, I'm like working 18-hour days nonstop. And he's like, well, I bet you could do it. And I'm like, yeah, I think I could, but the chances of that are very slim. I freaking love real estate. I love cold calling. I love appointments. If I did that forever, I would be fine.
Awesome. Cool. Well, so for folks that love your story and want to hear more, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can get a hold of me on Instagram at Ashlee Chapman. Facebook, I'm actually holding a mastermind at the end of the year in Scottsdale, Arizona, the first weekend in October, but end of September. And there are going to be limited spots about investing in real estate, and also wholesaling, performas, numbers, all of these things. I'm going to have guest speakers, Greg McDaniel included. So if you want to learn, you can come to the mastermind. If you send me an email, we'll do that. But you can also call me. My direct line is 858-401-6927. I am always happy to chat and go through what it is your goals are, so that way I can help you any way I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Ashlee, and sharing your story. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Mike. It was a pleasure.